So check it out, I got the Osmo Action right here, and this is actually my second time buying this camera. First time I bought it right when it came out, made a review about it, and I thought it was a pretty good camera, but I just felt like there was a lot of room for improvement. Eventually I did a giveaway with it, but my buddy Mark has one, loves it, and he says there's been a bunch of firmware updates making this camera a lot better. So I bought it again. So let's check out what we have here. Our camera, of course. This is my favorite part. We're gonna have to zoom in for this. Oh, no, I never realized this, but the case that the battery comes in has a little slot for a micro SD card. It's actually kind of clever because if you're carrying around a spare battery, you might need a spare card. But this is one of the main reasons I repurchased this Osmo Action. Sinova, or whatever, Osmo Action dual 3.5mm USB-C adapter. So this is made for the Osmo Action. It is super compact and it gives me what I need, which is this mic jack. It also has another USB port on here, but I think I just popped this off. So this just fits in right here, but it's a super simple solution. And apparently if you're using older firmware, the audio from this sounds terrible, but once you update it to the latest version, it's supposed to sound great. And the other accessory I'm really excited about is this case by DJI Tech. Now it's a case for your Osmo Action, but it comes with two cold shoes. Now the back just kind of slides off like that. We're gonna feed this through. Click that back in, and then the adapter fits in. Next, I'm gonna attach this microphone here to the side and plug that in right there. And check that out, one of the most compact vlogging setups with a good microphone. No, the Insta360 1R does have that reversible flip screen as well, but the audio quality just isn't 100% there. So I'm gonna go ahead and mount this up here. Bang! I just want to leave this Osmo Action in the car as a very simple vlogging option. I don't know if you guys just saw that, but Carrie just walked up and she didn't know I was in the car and she got so spooked. You had no idea I was in here? I had no idea you were in the car. No. The camera is arm's length away right now, and it's actually kind of good because it can show me, Carrie, and Sam in the back. And the little screen on the front of this Osmo Action is very useful. I mean, it's small, but I can at least tell that this is my edge of frame on the left, and Carrie's totally in the frame. And if it was the GoPro, I'll still be kind of guessing, and if the angle kind of gets shifted like that or something, I might not realize that the angle's not working until it's too late. With the picture quality here, I'm not necessarily looking for amazing image quality, but what I do care about is the sound quality right here. I just want good audio. One of my biggest issues with the Osmo Action when it first came out was that there was a terrible lag in the display when you had Rocksteady on. It was almost like a second delay, so if you were trying to track any sort of action, you'd be following way behind. Now the lag is very minimal. It's about the same as what you would get out of a GoPro, so that's awesome. Now the Osmo always had a larger display in the back, so that's a win. And also, of course, this display up here, I mean, that's a really big selling point for the Osmo. I was thinking that the 8 was gonna have something like that, but instead they came out with the add-on. But GoPro's been so slow at rolling out those accessories that who knows when we'll see it. I feel like they've announced that like a year ago. Actually, I don't know how long it's been specific. This is how long ago they've announced it, and I still can't get a hold of one. When I made the original video on this, the GoPro Hero 8 wasn't out yet, so I didn't realize that this is such a great feature. Taking this off. That means if you scratch it accidentally, you just swap this piece out, opposed to the Hero 8 where you can no longer do that. Probably because GoPro wants to sell more cameras once you scratch the lens. But I thought that was the worst thing that they did on the Hero 8. That little feature of being able to remove that lens is one that I took for granted, but now I appreciate you. So with the new firmware updates that they've done to this, it makes this camera a lot more appealing. But there's still that one big advantage that the GoPro has that the Osmo doesn't. So what I'm gonna do is record at the widest possible field of view on both these cameras. So on the Osmo Action, it's going to be 4K 4:3, and that is a full sensor readout. And on the GoPro, that mode is 4:3 mode or super view. And if you compare the two, they're actually pretty close. GoPro is wider, but not by that much. It's just a little bit. So the sensor is actually very wide on the Osmo Action. And that's great because I love my ultra wide field of views, but neither of these currently have any sort of stabilization. stabilization. To add stabilization, it's going to have to crop in. So looking at the GoPro's field of view, you have our super view, which is the full sensor, and then we add in hyper smooth to that, and we get a very slight crop in. So now we have a stabilized shot that's still very, very wide. So super view with hyper smooth is the mode I'm usually using if I'm doing POV. Like if I have it mounted onto my helmet, I want it to capture as much as possible, so whatever I see, the camera's also seeing. And then after that, we have wide and then linear, and then we could also do linear with boost stabilization. So that's awesome. Each field of view is very useful in different circumstances. So I love that. Now looking at the Osmo field of view, sure, that 4x3 is wide, but we punch into that 4K with Rocksteady, and look how much it punches into the frame. We can get that a little bit wider by pulling off the D-warp, so you are gonna get a little bit more distortion, but we get a bigger field of view. And then the other option is to go to 2.7K 4x3 aspect ratio, where you're getting a little bit less information from the sides, but more information vertically, and that is also stabilized. What I would love to see in a future firmware update is a mode that utilizes a majority of the sensor so that we have a stabilized wide shot. That would be awesome. But as of right now, if you wanted the widest setting that's stabilized on the GoPro, nice and wide, opposed to the Osmo's widest settings with stabilization, that's in way tighter. So what I don't like is that with the Osmo, if you want any stabilization, you have to get way in there. Knowing that the Osmo Action does have a very wide sensor in 4x3 mode, they might be able to add in a software update. We'll see. What's interesting is that if you record high frame rates, like 120, 240 frames per second, then it does use a big chunk of that sensor. But again, in that mode, there is no Rocksteady, and it's not really a mode that you would use all the time. It's just more for specialty slow-mo shots. Another thing I want to test is the minimum focus distance of the DJI Osmo Action as well as the GoPro. Both of these lenses have a fixed focused lens, so at a certain distance, I should go out of focus. So right now, I'm about a foot away. How is my clarity? So this is how Sam looks at about 2 feet. If I get pretty close, this is about like a foot away, a little bit uncomfortably close here. But there we go, that's what that looks like. How is the focus? When the Osmo Action first came out almost a year ago, I thought it was a good camera, but I felt like there were still more cons than pros. It felt like it just needed work. The biggest issue they had to fix was the amount of lag that you used to get out of this, but that is gone. There used to also be this issue where if you record for a long time, the audio will lose sync. That's fixed. There's also a hyperlapse mode that's stabilized. That used to not be in here. So a lot of improvements all across the board. I also did like a temperature test where I put both of these cameras in an incubator at 104 degrees, and the Osmo Action actually lasted longer than the Hero 8, so I was kind of surprised about that. I did also see that the GoPro Hero 8's price just dropped down to $300. The Osmo Street price is still a little bit less than that, but if your intention is to do some vlogging, you already have this built-in front-facing display, which is nice. I'm sure the GoPro will eventually release that flip-up display, but that's another 80 bucks, and you also need the media mod, which is another 80 bucks to make that front-facing display work, so you're dealing with another 160 bucks in accessories. GoPro always had advantage in accessories, but you can really mount this to anything that mounts a GoPro, but also now with companies like PGY Tech making this case, and also I don't know how to say the brand of this, but this is like an awesome little accessory. Look how small it is. It fits in right there and gives you a nice audio jack, so that is awesome. You still get 4K 60 just like the GoPro. You get 240 frames per second in 1080p just like the GoPro. But at 2.7K, this caps out at 60, but the GoPro can shoot 2.7K at 120. So the GoPro does have a slight frame rate advantage at 2.7K. The Osmo does still have that larger display, which is definitely nice. The GoPro still does have that GoPro look that I love, and it's basically very saturated blues and oranges, so the skies always look real nice. But I do kind of like how the Osmo Action handles skin tones a little bit better. I will continue to use the Hero 8 as my helmet camera though, because of that super view with stabilization. I love having that. I love being able to get a very wide view when I'm out riding. So of course, there are still advantages to the GoPro. If I turn on stabilization with the Osmo Action, I feel like everything's just in a little bit too tight for my liking as a helmet camera, but really digging the updates that DJI has done to this camera over time. Let's wrap this up. Read some comments from my last video, which is all about the Zhou and Crane 3S. Hero Dirt says, you could stabilize a a small child. I'm pretty sure you could. If only if this gimbal could stabilize them emotionally, then Zhuan would become a Fortune 500 company. Gene says this sucker can balance anything. Me, okay, what about my bank account? You know what, I'm gonna email Zhuan right now and just give him some of these recommendations. I mean, like, if you really want to bring value to your customers, it doesn't look right having such a big camera like a Red on such a small gimbal. I was a little bit sketched out a couple times, but it actually did fine. My first time leaving a comment here, so here we go. I'm not sure what to say, actually. Well, congratulations for leaving your very first comment. Is that what people do? Like, if you buy an Apple product for the first time, they all applaud you in the store or something. They actually do that when you go and buy a Harley. They ring a bell and the whole store goes, woo, as you like stand there ringing this bell. I think it's meant to make you feel excited and all, but I felt very uncomfortable.